Let's move on to item 610 or 10:45 a.m. item, public hearing. A, consideration of resolution making findings necessary to authorize an energy services contract for design, installation, and commissioning of energy conservation facilities serving the Lake County Courthouse campus. And B, consideration of agreement with Staten Solar Corporation for design, installation, and commissioning of energy conservation facilities serving the Lake County Courthouse campus. Director Lars, good morning.
Good morning. Lars Ewing, Public Services Director. I appreciate the time today. So as the board is aware, Public Services has been working under board direction toward a solar project at the courthouse campus. Funding was allocated this year for that, and I believe the prior year. In late 2022, Public Services hired a consultant, Optiny. Their vice president is going to be on Zoom here very soon. He'll be available if there's any questions and does not have a presentation. We'll go through this here. But in late 2022, we worked with Optiny to work toward a project. And then in June of 2023, we solicited an RFP for a project to design and construct and maintain for a certain period of time a solar project here at the courthouse. It was envisioned at the time, and as you'll see, this came to fruition through the proposals that we would be proposing, or that the best project would be a carport array at the parking lot just west of the DA. It's worth referencing for those that are not aware. Typically, you might consider a roof project. The roof at the courthouse, and for that matter, the DA, are both in use heavily. There's revenue-generating leases that we have with 3 telecommunication companies, not to mention rooftop utilities that affect it. So, the project that was proposed was a carport array. We received 6 proposals. Staten Solar Corporation was ranked as the top proposer by a county selection committee. We've negotiated with them for a draft contract. That's one item for the board's consideration. The other item, which is actually A, and that's the resolution making findings. Government Code Section 4217 is the process that we're following. Board might be aware and most familiar with a standard design bid build type of project where we hire a designer, engineer, architect to design a project. They completely design it through 100%, and then we put that project out to bid for low bid. And that is generally how the public contract code is arranged. But in the last decade or more, there's been advancements in design build where it's a kind of a joint effort. This is not a truly a design build project, but the Government Code Section 4217 allows the board or allows local jurisdictions to go out to to contract for energy services work in a manner that is most beneficial to the entity, so long as certain findings can be made, and that's what this resolution does. The long and the short of it is, so long as the project can be shown to be a financial benefit. There's cost savings that exceed the cost of the contract. That's the long and the short of it. So, some summary on the project, and we do have a site plan that we're happy to show. It essentially just shows where the solar panels would go. But we are proposing a 444 kilowatt solar PV array. It'll create about 670,000 kilowatt hours for a number of buildings here at the campus. It's the district attorney's office, our building. It's this courthouse building, and it also is the courthouse museum. The courthouse museum is served through the same meter as this building here. There are 753 modules. We would also have a 10-year O&M contract with the work, and as well as product warranties and workmanship warranties that come along with that. In addition to the array, to the PV, the photovoltaic array, there are 3 charging stations, electric vehicle charging stations proposed. Each one is a dual charger, so there would be 6 charging ports that are proposed, and so that summarizes the infrastructure that is proposed there. To talk a little bit about the financials, ultimately this project is intended to save us money in the long term. Not only that, but from a green energy perspective, we're generating electricity from the sun, clearly. So the financials, there is included on the agenda packet, there is an analysis that Optany prepared. Again, not the contractor that submitted. They had their own analysis, but doing a third-party analysis was prudent in this case. So some of the financials, the project will offset about 58% of facility use. The payback period would be about 10 years, and total savings over the 25-year system life. And the reason I chose 25 is that is the product warranty. Is a total savings of a little over $3 million over that system life. Doesn't mean that it ends there. We very well could, and we hope that it would continue beyond. Some assumptions that went into their analysis, and we can certainly talk about these as necessary. One is the PG&E rate escalation, and that's one that I'll go into in a bit, but a 3% assumed PG&E rate escalation, and that in Optany has confirmed with me that that's kind of an industry standard that they use, but we know the ebb and flow of that. Panel degradation rate, meaning how much power those panels will create. Assume that they degrade 0.5% per year. It assumes the county pays for operations and maintenance costs after the 10th year. And it also assumes the county's receipt of a 30% investment tax credit, which we are eligible for through, I believe it's the Recovery Act. I'm losing the thank you. So let's coming back a bit. Well, maybe I'll just wrap this up here. The CEQA is complete. The project falls under the city of Lakeport. They've confirmed that it is ministerially exempt. So we have that confirmation. The schedule, since this is a design build, we'd be starting the design once we get approval through your board. The schedule looks like we would have completion by fall of this year, if not even earlier. So I would like, that's the summary of the project, but I'd like to come back a bit just to talk about the PG&E rates and some of the assumptions that went into that. Supervisor Pyska asked a question the other day that we were able to clarify the PG&E upcoming changes in rate structures. I coordinated with Jonathan at Optany, who confirmed that if we submit an application prior to February 14th of this year, which assuming there's no hiccups here, to be blunt, that it looks like we should be able to do that with no problem. The application is a relatively, in their world, relatively streamlined process, and with the data that we already have, it's pretty much pull off the shelf. So with that application prior to February 14th, we would fall under the, I guess I can't say old rate structure, but the current rate structure. I believe that it's NEM, net energy metering, as opposed to the other acronym, the future acronym. I don't recall. And that's important because it's a significant cost savings. It's both the cost savings on what we would pay for power, but also what we get reimbursed for the power that we are sending back. So Jonathan has been a huge help with this. He's got a wealth of knowledge, so I would be deferring to him for a lot of the technical and certainly the PG&E questions. But for your board's consideration, two actions that are necessary. The first is the consideration of the resolution. What that does is it authorizes this process where we're hiring both the same company to design and construct, and then the second is the agreement with Staten. So happy to answer any questions, and Jonathan with Optany is available.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jonathan, for being here to answer some questions. And I see Supervisor Green.
Yeah, just super quick on the CEQA confirmation. So I don't see any documentation of that, and I'll definitely accept the city's assertion that it's a ministerial project and exempt under that. There may also be, I'm trying to remember what happened when we did the solar arrays on the city side. There also may be a categorical exemption. But what form does that confirmation come in? Do you have a written document? Was there a project application with the city and you got a written determination?
I received an email, to be honest, because it's ministerial. They didn't actually do a notice of determination. I assumed that it would be going through a categorical exemption process, but nevertheless, I do have that email from the city. I didn't provide it, but certainly can provide it to you.
I think it is still a project, so we don't need to necessarily add it to the scope of work of the contractor, but from our perspective, we should document that CEQA determination one way or another.
I have it in writing that they've determined that it's ministerially exempt, and I can provide that to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So I do have a question, and I think this is more towards Jonathan. So I thought we were going to see more than 3 connections. Obviously, that's split, so it's 6 connections for plugins in hopes of being prepared for future growth of our fleet or other just community member car usage. Is it easy to add more connections for future plugins if we needed to? And does it draw directly from the solar panels, or is it also drawing directly from PG&E, or both?
Yeah, I'd like to defer to Jonathan. While it's Staten's proposal, it's not Jonathan's, but I think he can likely answer that.
Sure thing, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for having us on here. Great project. The answer to the question, agreed. It's a great idea to think ahead for future EV fleet growth, both for county vehicles and then also just electric vehicle proliferation throughout the state here. You're right. 3 dual port carport chargers would be probably more than you need right now, but it's great to think ahead. What could be done hasn't been included right now in their design, but additional conduit runs. You could always run additional conduit, have them stub up out of the concrete or just below the concrete or asphalt, and ready for additional EV chargers in the future. I think it's a great idea. It's a little bit of additional cost, but they're doing their underground conduit runs anyway during this project. It's a great idea to have them add additional EV chargers. And all the EV chargers will actually be fed back from the building because they'll work on AC power. There are ways to have the EV chargers operate off of the solar itself, or even off of the solar after it's been converted to AC energy. But generally speaking, it just makes more sense to go back through the main switchgear with a dedicated electric vehicle charger breaker that then manages all the charging directly from the building.
Thank you for that. I'm looking at this, and we're provided a 25-year potential of cost savings, and I'm thinking 25 years from now, our parking lot will look drastically different in the vehicles that we have. I would love to see us making sure that we do have it prepared for expansion of charging stations if we choose to apply that in the future. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I would like to be better prepared so we don't have to kind of restart and bring conduit at a time where it's more difficult to add conduit, or it doesn't look the same by adding conduit at a future date. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. Getting one yes?
Absolutely.
I had a feeling you'd be on board for that.
What
At least to put the conduit in the ground, to have those opportunities for a simple expansion, even if it's through another grant program or something that's going to be coming down over the next couple of years from the state level. So, yeah, I completely agree with having those conduits put in the ground so we could make an expansion there when the time is needed.
With the board's consensus, then, what I would propose to do is come back at a later date, relatively soon, though, as negotiate with Staten about what that would look like, confer with Optony, and then it would be a change order that we would be coming back to you with.
Definitely don't want to slow this down. Want to give you that.
I don't think it would.
Want to give you that go-ahead so you can meet the February 14th deadline. That's important to all of us. But that was my only thing that I saw. I was like, just 3?
Yeah, and just physically where those would be located, they're geographically they're in the southeast corner of the parking lot, basically the corner of the courthouse parking lot that's closest to us right now, or where people would walk from the parking lot. So recognizing that any EV charging, if we're dedicating EV charging parking or stations, and therefore the parking, then we're eliminating some regular or standard parking lot or parking stalls there. So just for consideration, I don't think it's. I think the reward is better than the risk, but nevertheless, that's we'll come back to the board with information on that as a change order.
Perfect. And as far as the 3% industry standard for the increase, we know we've seen some much larger increases. So in my mind, I see this overall savings over the 25 years. I see it as just being a starting point, and we will see even greater savings if we actually allowed us to stay on PG&E and pay the entire cost of all these increases. So I appreciate this being in front of us and looking forward to approving this.
Great.
Any other comment?
One follow-up question. In looking through it, battery backup, batteries down the road, would there be an opportunity to incorporate that too when you're talking about change orders for the eventual, those things? Because we know what's happening.
Yep.
PG&E is moving those peak times when the sun may be down, so having those batteries to operate in that 4-hour time period are important. So I guess the question would be, at least I haven't built a system like this. Are these adaptable where we could add batteries to it? The question is the gentleman on the screen.
Jonathan, if you could answer that.
Sure, happy to address that. Yes, completely. The system was designed originally with battery storage as an alternative. As Mr. Ewing noted, it just financially it added additional savings, the battery system did, but not enough to cover the additional cost at this point. As you're mentioning, Supervisor, it will change. It'll change here in the coming years. And so the system can be retrofitted with a battery energy storage system. There would just need to be some work basically on the north side of the DA building, have some batteries probably installed there, most likely, could be other locations, and then basically break the electrical run to basically, instead of going directly to the buildings, go over to the battery storage first and then into the building, so that way some of the solar energy could be stored and then used by the utility or used by the county when rates are higher or when there's higher demand.
And for some clarity there, Jonathan referenced that I had mentioned it. I hadn't said anything about the battery energy storage system. What I was going to mention is that it was included as an option in the RFP that we put out. And so I think every proposal we received included that as some option. But the numbers simply didn't justify including it now. So I just, for some clarity there.
Makes sense to me. Thank you for the question. Let's open it up for the public. Any comments or questions from those in the Zoom room or the chamber?
I have the same question actually related to where the battery backup could be put in. Is it going to be pre-wired for it as well?
Jonathan, do you recall Staten's? Well, I'll just leave that to you because there were a few locations that each proposer had included.
Right. The main idea that we saw from all of the proposers was an equipment pad on the north side of the district attorney's building. I think there's a tree there right now and some bushes, but otherwise kind of not used by a whole lot of other things. And that would likely be the location. There won't be conduit run at this point for that, but it would be a relatively straightforward retrofit to interrupt the conduit run will go right past that area or right through that area. And so if a battery storage system were installed in the future, they'd just be able to, the new installer would be able to intercept that conduit run and then basically hop over to the equipment pad and then back over to the existing conduit run where it is there at the, going into the building.
There was also consideration of a storage system inside the Sally Port at the district attorney's building. There's a mechanical room in there that was evaluated. I don't think any of the proposers actually had that as their recommended location, but that's also an option in the future.
Okay. That answer your question? Okay. Thank you very much for that. And didn't see a hand up in the Zoom room or anyone getting up in the chamber, so bringing it back for 2 actions.
One quick question.
Go for it.
Just a question for County Council. Although I accept the assertion this is ministerial exempt, I'm wondering if the resolution before us could be amended, if it's necessary, to just add a one-liner that the City of Lakeport has determined this project to be ministerial exempt under CEQA. I know it's a reso approving a contract, but to have no reference to CEQA in the approvals we're doing today, just a question whether we might want to add a simple addition to the reso to declare CEQA findings. Or the city's, to reference the city's prior determination on CEQA.
Your board may add that as a recital to the resolution, if your board chooses to do so. The only suggestion would be to, if it's reflected in the contract itself, that it be made consistent with the contract that's also before your board for approval.
The resolution is primarily about the findings, that there's cost savings. Now,
Right.
granted, it does reference the contract too.
I feel like it's two separate compartmentalized processes. One of them was with the city of Lakeport. They have their process. We've obviously received a response. They feel it's the appropriate process in response to the project that was proposed to them. This is more specific to the contract and agreement of what we're going to be doing. I feel it's two separate processes.
And if I might add some clarity, that the government code section, specifically says what that resolution has to state. I mean, not word for word, but the finding has to be that there's cost savings. There's no reference to CEQA needing to be in there. So the resolution, as you're aware, typical contracts, we wouldn't also have a resolution approving the contract. That's a standalone action. So the resolution, driven by Government Code 4217, is strictly in relation to the findings that the project will pay for itself. But we can certainly change that if the board has that desire.
Thank you for that clarification. Doesn't sound like there's need for that. If there's no further comment, I'm going to offer the resolution making findings necessary to authorize an energy services contract for the design, installation, and commissioning of energy conservation facilities serving the Lake County Courthouse campus.
Resolution has been offered.
Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Crandall?
Aye.
Supervisor Green?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
And Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
And since I'm on a roll, I'm going to move to approve the agreement with Staten Solar Corporation for the design, installation, and commissioning of energy conservation facilities serving the Lake County Courthouse campus and authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Great
Exciting.
work. Thank you, Lars. Thank you.
And you said fall.
And everybody.
Fall
Yeah.
is the estimated schedule, yeah.
That's very exciting.
Well, it's a big project we've been planning for a long time. It's really nice to see it being implemented.
Absolutely.
Good job.